What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and to another Overwatch League news recap. In a very short amount of time, a lot of major news has gone down. There's practically unlimited points of interest in today's video, so you better buckle in. The place I want to start with today is the Seoul Dynasty. They went out and acquired both JJonak and Smurf in free agency. They said they were going for an aggressive rebuild, and they really meant it. It goes without saying that they pursued some noteworthy names from the community. These are no joke signings that indicate that Seoul is going all in. Let's start with Smurf. This is the pickup I am the most happy about. The tank position has been way too dysfunctional the last couple of years, and I think that Smurf has the potential to resolve this. Maybe not all by himself, since he's not a super well-versed off-tank player or anything like that, but he definitely does provide better overall consistency and flexibility, at least on paper. Seoul likely will not have to worry as much about what main tank is being played, because Smurf can basically play them all. He's absolutely an upgrade with Winston, and he's around the level of Gesture on Orisa, so this is honestly huge. It's another veteran with championship experience and superstar level potential. If Seoul can find somebody who can fill in the off-tank holes, their tank situation could be exponentially better in 2022. In terms of the JJonak signing, I've heard mixed opinions from the community so far. Some fans are thrilled, while others don't really think he offers much more than Creative does. Regardless of where you stand, it kinda goes without saying that JJonak is a way bigger name with better feats and a higher ceiling, and that is why I for one believe this will be an upgrade. Is it necessarily a giant one? Maybe not, because JJonak definitely is not in his prime anymore, but in my honest opinion, he still does offer you more than Creative currently. To me, people lived a bit too much in the past with Creative when judging his 2021 performance. I honestly believe that some people are still hung up on his performance in the 2020 playoffs 1 year prior. But you've got to look beyond that, you know? Think past his Ana. Is JJonak not a better option on like Zenyatta, let's say? This dude literally made a name for himself on that character and was way better than Creative statistically on it. And while the community doesn't rate his BAP absurdly high, I would still argue that JJonak was better on that hero too when you look at the numbers. JJonak to me is simply a better option due to his higher ceiling. JJonak is a one-of-a-kind player. Yeah, his dominance hasn't been as crazy the last few years, but he also played for some worse teams in recent memory. If everything clicks on the Dynasty, he could have an upward trending year. The main difference between Creative and JJonak is that you have to invest a lot more into somebody like JJonak than you do with Creative, but you know what? I for one think that it's totally worth it if Seoul intend to be a completely different team compared to years past. Old passive Seoul style was well suited for Creative, but this new team looks far more aggressive on paper, so JJonak fits the mold a bit better. I like this pickup. Seoul are not just all talk. When they say they are going all out, it's gonna happen. Oh, and by the way, a big reason why Smurf, and I'm assuming JJonak actually as well, came to Seoul is because of Profit. According to Arnold, he played a major role in the recruitment process. Smurf in particular had offers that paid more money, but he chose Seoul thanks to Profit and him liking the DPS core and mentality this team had heading into Season 5. Profit carries in-game and in real life. That's what a true superstar does for you. He knows how to influence other big names to join him. It reminds me of LeBron James from back in the day, where he can basically just get anybody he wants on his team. With that in mind, Seoul fans now have yet another reason to be thankful for Profit, as if they didn't already have enough, am I right? Pretty awesome stuff though. On the topic of Seoul and trying to create this loaded roster of sorts, they also got their new starting main support. Please give a warm welcome to Vindaim. He served as one half of the O2 Blast main support rotation. It's funny too because unlike Chiyo, the other main support on the team, he does not have this rich pro history behind him. I couldn't believe it at first when doing the research for him, but he's only been competing in contenders since the spring. He's kind of a path to pro speedrunner. It took him only 5 months to make the league. If this guy can so easily make the league, while a bunch of others have been grinding for all this time and still haven't made it, I think it kind of goes to show that this man is the real deal. He got a fair bit of playtime on the best Korean roster in contenders, despite that inexperience. The big hero he was kind of known for during his time in contenders was Brig. He could be a significant difference maker on this character even at this level. The man knows what he's doing, that's for sure. The only thing I'm not entirely sure about in terms of his hero pool is Lucio, and that's mostly because he usually just got subbed in to play Brig and Mercy. It's not to say that he can't play Lucio, it's more that we've just seen a bunch of other players on his team take up that role. Either way, Vindaim is a highly rated main support prospect who comes from a great place. Dynasty fans should be pretty hyped about this pickup. Him and JJonak could absolutely work well together. It's cool to see the Dynasty going for a big name support prospect rather than sticking with veterans for once. The Dynasty haven't fielded a rookie main support since Dpei back in 2019. Needless to say, this was a long time coming. This team needed just a bit more youth to balance everything out. Seoul now have a pretty promising team on paper because of their 3 most recent transactions plus Stalker from a week ago. It'll be very interesting to see how they finish up their roster in the coming weeks. Throw in another tank of some sort, and they have one of the most well-rounded rosters in the league most likely. For a team named Dynasty, they don't exactly have the accolades to back up the meaning of the word. If they're going to change that as we head into a new era, some big plays have to go down. It's purely a win-now mindset for them, and I love it. This team is going to have expectations that rival their Season 1 counterparts. If they fail, it is not going to be pretty. But I think it's about time to right the wrongs of the past. Next on the list of big-time additions is the Dallas Fuel. They pretty much filled up the rest of their roster in a matter of days with the additions at DPS and main support. Let's start with main support because that's the big position that a lot of people had questions about after Dpei left. The Fuel replaced him with none other than former Runaway and O2 Blast main support, Chiyo. This is a big one, ladies and gentlemen. The Dpei stands may be a little offended that Dallas ditched him for a rookie, but Chiyo is a great replacement who could absolutely provide more value. I myself haven't watched hours upon hours of Chiyo gameplay, but from what I've seen throughout the years in Contenders, he is the real deal. He appears to be a very promising prospect who showed pretty good consistency throughout his career in Korean Contenders. And I mean, he played for some pretty well-established teams for a good bit of time, so think about what that indicates. The top teams almost always had an interest in him, and wherever he went, success usually followed. The man just won the most recent season of Korean Contenders on O2 Blast and has made deep runs both in Contenders and in the Gauntlet under Runaway. He's a proven and reliable main support at the Tier 2 level who can do his job no matter what the meta may call for. Again, I'm no expert scouter, but all signs point to him having great potential as one of the top prospects at his position. Is he an automatic upgrade over Dpei? Well, it's probably a good idea to wait and just look at how he does before coming to any conclusions, but he low-key has a great shot. He seems like a more flexible option than Dpei, and we don't know how high his ceiling is yet. We already know what Dpei can bring, and obviously Dallas believes they can do better, hence why they signed Chiyo. Overall, this is a great pickup that Dallas fans should be excited about. But of course, there's more excitement where that came from as the Fuel announced the addition of Edison and Guriyo at their DPS line. Edison seriously might go down as an underrated pickup despite people knowing who he is. We all know how high this guy's potential is, that's why I say this. The hype surrounding him coming out of GC Busan was insane, and I think a fresh start under a fantastic team like Dallas could get him well back on that track of being a superstar player. And from the side of Dallas, he gives the team something they lacked for pretty much the entire year. A real hit scan. We know that Edison can be effective on things like Widow and McCree. That goes without question. And on top of that, he's a great alternative option on Tracer if you desperately need Sparkle on something else. But that's not the only reason that Edison came to Dallas. Supposedly, the team also had interest in his flexibility. They are confident that he can make a difference on things like Doomfist and Reaper along with his hit scan duties. And that makes a lot of sense, right? Dallas definitely needed a bit more flexibility. Now in theory, they have a ton of it and it's not really a problem. You also have to think about what this does from a synergy standpoint though, because Edison arguably could be even more effective now that he's only Kami in Korean, and he used to play with Fielder back in the day on top of that, so he'll fit in just fine with the rest of this crew most likely. Edison is definitely not the first guy I thought Dallas would be looking towards, but he's far from a bad pickup. But if we're being for real, the move a lot of fans are probably more interested in is Guriyo, because he's not a household name for those who aren't big into Contenders. So naturally, a lot of fans are going to want to know who the heck this guy is. To give some quick background info, Guriyo is a hitscan DPS from Korean Contenders. He played for Team Diamond, a not very accomplished team, for around 9 months, and they didn't really win anything during his time there. But Team Diamond may sound familiar to some of you who have been watching my channel for a while, and that's because they already had a star in the making last year go over to the league. Does Flora ring a bell to any of you? That's right, this guy comes from Flora's former team. Will he necessarily be as good as Flora? Probably not, but all I'm saying is he comes from a place that has boasted a few under-the-radar prospects throughout the years. He could be the next unknown guy to surprise a lot of people. He kind of makes me think of like Guangboon in a way, where he might come in for those sniper-centric and heavy hit-scan maps. If there is one thing I have learned these last couple of years, it's that the guys you don't usually know a lot about are some of the most intriguing rookies, and a lot of them usually become some of the best. Season 3 and 4 have both proven that. Oftentimes, a wealth of talent comes from the less successful rosters out there and contenders. So if you're a Dallas fan, definitely give this guy a shot. Get excited, if anything. It's funny too, because this is more of the kind of signing I expected out of Dallas, as crazy as it sounds. The team said they were looking at Korean contenders' talent, I believe, and to find a diamond in the rough of some sort, and this guy kind of fits that description perfectly. It's unclear how much the Fuel are going to utilize him just because they have a pretty star-studded DPS lineup, but you never know how things are going to go. This now puts the Dallas Fuel at an 8-man roster, and while anything could technically go wrong, their roster as it stands is promising. They maintained the pieces that worked from last year, then added some new and exciting talent to help expand that potential of theirs. They've got a strong DPS line to go along with the theme of Overwatch 2. They have two of the best tanks you could possibly ask for, and arguably one of the most intriguing support lines out of any team. This Fuel team, at this current point in time, looks like one of the better teams the league has to offer. Hopefully they live up to their potential, that's all I'm gonna say. How about we shift gears over to the other Texas team, who made a big move of their own recently. To continue with the trend of stealing away former Atlanta stars, they signed Iris as their replacement for Crimzo. And I mean, hey, if you're going to part ways with a guy who played well for you last year, you might as well get somebody who is arguably better. Iris had a breakout season, just like Crimzo in 2021. He turned into one of the most respectable flex supports in the game, and his hero pool, I would say it's very similar to that of Crimzo's. Their BAPs and their Anas are around the same. I think the only difference right now is that Crimzo appears to be a bit more proven on Zenyatta. But either way, Iris arguably was just as much of a carry for his team as Crimzo was last year, so on paper, Houston fans shouldn't have anything to worry about. So long as he synergizes well with whoever Houston signs at main support, I suspect that this move will work out. When you think about it, Masa, he's still on the market, so maybe Houston could bring him in to keep that Atlanta support line synergy alive. Iris is an excellent addition to a crazy-looking core. Iris, Pelican, Piggy, and Dante is a nice starting point. If the Outlaws have even more big-time signings like this in store, they will certainly be a top team in the West yet again. Speaking of top teams in the West, that gets me into the Gladiators, who gave us some good news and some bad news. Starting with the good news, the Glads already locked up their new main support replacement with Funnyastro. Despite Moth being less relevant in Season 4, that does not change the fact that this team needed a new Lucio and Mercy player. Overwatch 2 is a completely different game. There's no telling what the meta might become, and you've got to be prepared. There's a lot of question marks in the air, so it's smart to not take any chances. Astro is reliable and is at the level of Moth, basically. And that, in theory, should make this a side grade, or at the very least, a way to fill out the void. My expectation is that Astro will literally do exactly what Moth did, provide leadership and reliable play whenever he's in the game. There's not much else to say. It's not like this is a controversial signing. Astro is a top-tier main support in the league. You know what you're gonna get. Don't think of it as a wasteful signing. Please remember that Skewed is a flex support at heart. He may be god tier on Brigitte, but he's not a full-on main support. That's where Funnyastro comes in, people. You have to remember that flexibility means everything right now to these teams. Everybody wants as much flexibility as humanly possible to be well prepared for a brand new game where they don't know what's going to happen. Don't question it, Glads fans. Be happy that you got one of the best possible replacements for Moth. How lucky is Funnyastro, by the way? His entire OWL career has consisted of playing with world-class flex supports, basically. First Alarm and now Shu. What a fortunate guy. I bet a lot of support players out there would kill to be able to play with people like that their whole careers. Lucky him. But wait, there's more. To compensate for Birdring's retirement, they went ahead and signed ANS. I guess the Glads want one shock legend on their team at all times. This is how you go out and replace your superstar hit scan. ANS on paper is an ideal replacement. While there's no guarantee he's going to carry as much as he did during his shock days, or as much as Birdring did when he played for the Glads, but the potential is always going to be there, right? As one of the most mechanically talented players we've ever seen, he's gonna be a threat no matter what. On things like McCree, Widow, and Ashe, he can be just as good as Birdring. Where things might get a bit more dicey though is like on Sombra and Hanzo. Those are areas where Birdring excels a bit more than ANS, so definitely we're going to have to see him step up his game in some regards in terms of his hero pool. It's going to be interesting to see if ANS can live up to expectations. While he looked okay during his return to the Shock this year, he wasn't always blowing your socks off like he did in Season 3. He had his moments, but they weren't very consistent. Maybe a bit more time to get back into the swing of things will help him reawaken his top form. We all know what ANS is capable of. What we don't know is how he's going to play and if it'll be up to his full potential on a different team. In my opinion, this either will be a side grade or a slight downgrade if ANS cannot get back into his top form. I would be shocked if he was noticeably better than Birdring. But either way, this is good work by the Glads. As usual, they're spending big during the offseason, and I mean, after how they played last year, the expectations have never been higher, so of course you kind of have to just go big or go home in this scenario in order to deliver, and I think the Glads have done that perfectly so far. Anyway, let's get the bad news out of the way now. Seemingly out of nowhere, Dpei announced his departure from the LA Gladiators, and this was unexpected for a couple of different reasons. For one, the Glads are literally coming off their most successful season of all time. This is the one year where you'd expect Dpei to be happy and stay put. For once, he wasn't under fire for his team either choking or lacking consistency. The Glads were good, so there's that, and the fact that a lot of reactions on social media would indicate this was sudden. I remember Skewed making a post with a bunch of question marks, and the Gladiators themselves taking a long time to get out a goodbye video. It took over 24 hours. As I am writing this portion of the video, some more light has been shed on the situation. Dpei went on stream and said there was some drama between him and the Gladiators here at the end of his tenure. If you want to check out the full VOD of him explaining things, a link will be provided in the description. To summarize what Dpei said though, apparently him and the Glads ended things on a really sour note. There's no like concrete evidence to support these claims, and obviously we probably will never have this kind of evidence, but according to Dpei, things got heated at the start of the offseason. Supposedly, the team came in and said that players wanted to work with a different coach this year. And by the way, apparently none of the players actually said this, and this was a lie said to Dpei's face. But anyway, from there the Glads made it clear that they could fire him if they wanted to because they felt they no longer needed his assistance. As talks continued throughout the offseason, the team managers and owners threw personal attacks at him, leading to Dpei leaving the meeting and going home crying. And that apparently was the final straw in the last meeting between the two sides before this announcement. Again, this is closed-door stuff, so we really don't know how much is true. The Glads themselves have yet to make a response of any sort as of this video, and we have zero clue if they ever will. If you want my honest opinion on this matter, I feel like Dpei wouldn't hold back the truth. He doesn't seem like that type of guy. And this is pretty messed up if it is true, because after all, the Glads had this guy commit to their team for years. He was always there, ready to work, showing his dedication, and this is how they're treating them. Not a good look on the org's part, that's for sure. But again, it's probably for the best to keep this in the back of our minds for now, as we don't know what the Gladiators will do about this, or if they have any sort of statement they have in store for us. I don't really love hearing about drama, and I don't love covering it, but obviously this is pretty important, hence why I brought it up in today's video. When it comes to what Dpei might do next, for now I believe he is taking a break. He's been grinding as a pro coach for the last 5 years, and he feels that it's in his best interest to take some time to reflect upon all of that and figure out what he wants to do next. Dpei not being a part of the Gladiators is going to be strange. He's been their coach since the very beginning back in 2018, and I believe he's one of the longest tenured coaches we've ever seen, if not the longest in the Overwatch League, and not switching his team or anything like that. The dude had one of the bigger personalities among head coaches, and he definitely was highly respected amongst his players. I know I've thrown my fair share of shade at this guy throughout the years, but I definitely do recognize that he was highly respected, and I definitely have a lot of respect for him for showing so much commitment to this game and passion and whatnot. And when it mattered the most in his final year of coaching this team, he gave people a reason to believe in him again, as well as the Gladiators as a franchise. People could no longer get on him for a lack of adaptations or a lack of competitiveness against the upper tier teams. The Gladiators were great, and he should feel proud knowing that he left this team behind on a pretty bright note. It's sad to see his journey as a Gladiator end here, but it's understandable. I'm getting really sad thinking about this though, so let's move on from this subject, shall we? Let's talk about the Florida Mayhem, who pick picked up Contenders flex support, SirMajed. Florida have begun their rebuild through Contenders talent, and this is not a terrible way to start it off at all. Now, of course, Florida fans need to take a step back and recognize that he is not Gangnam Jin, nor should we expect him to be. But even so, that doesn't mean he can't be a reliable player. If Florida are going to be the next underdog or like Paris Eternal, let's say, they'll need to take some chances on some people that you really don't know that much about. A young player like SirMajed fits the bill. This Saudi Arabian player spent a good amount of time in EU Contenders on Raspberry Racers. But more recently, he went over to North American Contenders to play for Bobby Wasabi, and you may recognize this team name as they fielded some familiar names, such as Hydration, Speedily, and OG. This man played with the big guns, and he absolutely held his own. Because I didn't have a lot of time, I was only really able to look at some snippets of his play, but I didn't hate what I saw. His BAP looked pretty decent, and I'm pretty sure he's got a good Zen as well. He low-key might be the next Khan type of player, someone who isn't talked about as much as the big names, but he kind of still makes an impact during his rookie year. SirMajed may not be the most well-known flex support on the market, but that's totally fine. The Mayhem are in full rebuild mode after all, and if they want to form a roster of future stars, they gotta take a risk or two. Considering that this is a rebuild year with low expectations, there's not much to lose. This guy was respectable in 2 different regions, and Albert said that he outplayed other flex supports in tryouts on 180 ping. That's a promising sign. While I personally may not know a lot about this guy, I'm excited to give him a chance anyway. Sticking with the Mayhem player additions, they followed up by bringing back Checkmate after his initial release. The initial rumors of Florida going full Western seem to not be true, which opens up a lot more possibilities on what the roster could be looking like. Clearly, the Mayhem have a strong liking for Checkmate. They brought him back despite transitioning to a mixed roster with a brand new coach who has a clearly different vision compared to what, Kuki was doing before. In terms of whether this is a good pickup or not, I, for one, am not ready to judge, and the only reason I say this is because Checkmate didn't really get a chance to prove himself last year. Yaki was the top dog last year at Flex DPS, so naturally, Checkmate didn't really get many opportunities. He only played a few maps on DPS last year and then was main tank for the memes, essentially, because OG wasn't there. If the rumors of Yaki being on his way out remain true, this opens up the door for Checkmate to prove himself. He seemed like an okay option coming out of Contenders, so why not give him a second shot, When your team pretty much has nothing to lose, you might as well try. No matter what ends up happening, I think I'm pretty happy that Florida are open to every single region. It gives you better odds of future success and can kind of help you figure out what the best thing to do is moving forward after some initial testing this year. All it takes is 1 or 2 of their guys to pan out, and suddenly, you have a sense of direction again. Moving on to the Toronto Defiant, they went ahead and signed Hotba. Like I talked about a few weeks ago, Hotba arguably did enough on Philly this year to secure another job, or at least get a fair amount of interest from other teams. While he definitely was not a top-tier off-tank, Hotba oftentimes did play at a decent level. At the very least, he showed us better results than what he did on New York, let's say. He fills out the off-tank role. It's not the glamorous kind of pickup like with Twilight the other day, but still, it fills out a need. Honestly, Hotba might do better in a 5v5 system. There's no longer the responsibility of having to follow around your main tank and protecting him. He can focus more on himself. He's a very selfish player, I feel like. But more importantly, now his teammates only have to take care of him instead of a main tank as well, which could end up enabling his aggressive playstyle a bit better. I'm kinda excited to see what Hotba can do in this game. There's reason to be hopeful in a 5v5 format, especially when you consider that he may not even be a full-time starter. I'm sure Toronto fans are looking at this kind of pickup and are saying, come on, we need more big-name signings like with Twilight, but it's important to also maintain patience and not have your expectations set too high. That's when you end up setting yourself up for disappointment. Next, we move on to some Boston news. They went out and signed Crimzo as their new flex support for the upcoming year. He's not a bad replacement from Youngbung. Most people would argue that Crimzo had the better year, so depending on who you're talking to, this might be considered an upgrade. Crimzo is no doubt a great pickup. He was an excellent player last year. The thing is, though, I would consider Youngbung's ceiling to be a bit higher. He got so much hype back in his Contenders days and his rookie year on Boston. As of right now, there is no telling if Crimzo will be an upgrade, downgrade, or side grade in my opinion. If you simply want to think about it from what happened last year and from like a hero pool standpoint, let's say, Crimzo low-key might be the better option currently because at the very least he does have a noticeably better Baptiste. although you might argue he's also stronger on Zen too. I don't mind this pickup. It's a little sad to see a player of Myungbong's caliber leave, but the future could still be very bright if you're a fan of Boston. It's worth noting that the Uprising officially brought back Punk and Faith as well for the upcoming year, so Boston does have a decent looking mixed roster here at the start, and supposedly they're actually willing to spend some money this offseason for a change, so some other big names could very well be on the way. The final team to announce a player signing in this video was the Guangzhou Charge. They're sticking with the young prospect hit scan approach as they went ahead and picked up former Shanghai Dragons DPS Develop. Now's our chance to seriously see what this guy's capable of at this level. Guangzhou is a fantastic place to prove himself. I know for a fact that people loved him coming out of Talon Esports, and if the few maps he played in the league last year is any sort of indicator, he might be able to become something special one day alongside Choi Se-wan. While there's reason to have high hopes for Develop, it's also a little disappointing at the same time just because I kind of thought Guangzhou might go out there and get somebody more established after what happened last year. They are literally doing the exact same thing right now where they risk it all on a young prospect, and I pray, I mean seriously, I am hoping to the Overwatch gods that Develop pans out just for the sake of history not repeating itself. Hopefully Guangzhou are not done at DPS. If they got like one other guy, I'd feel a bit more comfortable at the current situation. Now for a quick departure. Bebe is parting ways with the Washington Justice. No real surprises here, I would say. Bebe had his time to prove himself, but wasn't always what the Justice were looking for throughout the year. He oftentimes was not playing up to his full potential when the lights were at their brightest. With the up and down year the Justice had, they needed him to do more, and now that he still hasn't shown much improvement, it's unclear if Bebe is going to find a new job. It might be tough to get a gig outside of contenders, even if he is an established veteran. On the Justice side of things, it kinda goes without saying that they could do better here. Even with JJonak and Twilight off the table, the options are still pretty wide open. Come on, Justice, don't let us down. Pick somebody good. Along with a few players leaving their teams, we also saw a retirement take place. Slime has decided to hang it up after a 4-year career. After some consideration, Slime stated that it would be hard for him to continue playing the game professionally. It's a shame to see him leave us behind, but if he believes it's necessary for his future to do this, then all the power to him. Slime can walk away from Overwatch knowing that he was quite accomplished. He won a season of contenders on Runaway, and he won a regular season tournament on the Vancouver Titans back in 2019. He's played in a grand finals before, and he's been on 2 teams who have made it there. Slime did quite a lot in just a few years of time, but still, I can't help but feel bad for the guy anyway, because after his initial success on Runaway and a year on Vancouver, he never really got any chances to be a part of a successful culture ever again. He dealt with Vancouver drama at the start of 2020, then while he did join the Seoul Dynasty, he was kind of on the bench most of the time, as he had to watch Toby start in the 2020 grand finals over him. And on top of that, he ended up joining a Florida team a year too late as seen by the results. Slime didn't have it easy the last couple of years, but honestly, he can probably still walk away happy knowing that he played in the league for 3 straight years and enjoyed some wonderful memories both on Runaway and early Vancouver. So while his adventure may be ending here, what he leaves behind can never truly be forgotten. Slime's iconic Lucio was a joy to watch. We should be very thankful for all the years Slime dedicated to us as we wish him good luck in the next chapter of his life. We're gonna miss you, Slime. And finally, to wrap up your news for the day, the Toronto Defiant brought back Mobydik to be a member of their coaching staff. Moby was a member of Toronto back in 2019 when they genuinely struggled a ton. This new team could be looking a lot better, and there's a strong possibility that him and KDG make for an elite coaching duo. After leaving Philly during the offseason, rumor has it that many teams showed interest in signing him. He's a highly respected person in the world of coaching, so Toronto might have made a huge move here. KDG, Moby, and Yang1 is a respectable coaching staff. I dig it. A coaching staff with a good reputation is likely to attract some talented individuals. Keep your eyes peeled, Toronto fans. This might only be the beginning of an epic offseason. And with that said, that is all of the news I have to cover for you today. I hope you enjoyed this roller coaster ride of a video. If you did, hitting like and subscribe would really make my day and help out a lot with my future videos. And feel free to leave a comment down below on certain headlines that you thought were interesting that were covered in today's video. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate your support. And until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.